All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a medical mystery, one that hit millions of people during the pandemic, that sudden, bizarre loss of smell from COVID-19. We're going to look at how scientists cracked this puzzle and, in the process, what it taught us about maybe our most powerful and most mysterious sense.
Okay, let's kick things off with something I'm sure you've experienced. Have you ever caught a whiff of something? Like freshly cut grass or an old book, maybe a perfume, and bam, you're instantly transported back in time. You're not just remembering something, you are right there again.
And here's the cool part. That feeling isn't just in your head. Well, it is, but science totally backs it up. Researchers have literally watched people's brains with fMRI scans while they're smelling things that trigger memories. And guess what? The parts of the brain that handle emotion and memory, we're talking the amygdala and the hippocampus, they light up like a Christmas tree, way more than for any other sense. It's like a direct hotline to your past, which makes smell just incredibly powerful.
So, if we want to get why this all went so wrong for so many people, we first have to understand the absolutely incredible biological machine that makes it work in the first place.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works. The real heroes of the story are these things called olfactory receptors. The best way to think about them is like millions of tiny, specialized locks. They're sitting on the surface of nerve cells way up in your nose. And when an odor molecule, the key, comes floating along and fits perfectly into one of those locks, click, that's what starts the whole process of smelling.
So, how many different types of these locks do you think we have? The answer is pretty mind-blowing. It's about 400. That's our entire toolkit for smelling the world. Now hold on a second. You might be thinking, only 400? How on earth can we tell the difference between thousands, maybe even millions of different smells with just 400 receptor types? That's a great question.
Well, the answer is just genius, and it works a lot like a piano. See, it's not one key, one note. It's not one receptor for one smell. Instead, every single smell is like a unique chord. The smell of a rose, that's not a single note. It's a beautiful, complex chord played on our olfactory piano. The smell of coffee, that's another chord entirely. Our brain is just an amazing musician that reads these chords instantly to tell us exactly what we're smelling.
Okay, so where do these receptors live? They're on what are called olfactory sensory neurons, or OSNs for short. But these neurons are definitely not working alone. They're part of a whole team. Think of it like a Formula One team. You got the OSNs, they're the star drivers. Then you have the absolutely critical supporting cells. They're the pit crew, right? They provide all the support, keep everything running smoothly. And finally, you've got the basal cells. They're like the team that rebuilds the car from scratch if it crashes. Now, pay close attention to that pit crew, the supporting cells. They are going to be a huge part of the story in just a minute.
All right, so we've got this beautiful, complex system, but what happens when it breaks? What is it actually like to live in a world with no smell at all?
The official name for this condition is anosmia. It can be a partial loss or a total one. And believe me, its impact goes way, way beyond just not being able to smell your morning coffee.
So much of what we think of as taste is actually smell, it's aroma. So without it, food just turns to cardboard, it's bland, which can even lead to people not eating enough. And even more seriously, think about this. Our sense of smell is our built-in danger detector. It's what warns you about a gas leak, or smoke from a fire, or spoiled food. Losing that? It's like losing a superpower. It's no wonder that this loss of connection to the world can be so isolating that it seriously increases the risk of depression.
And that brings us right to the heart of our mystery, the global event that suddenly put anosmia on everyone's radar, the COVID-19 pandemic. All of a sudden, millions upon millions of people were reporting this, and for many, it was the very first sign they were sick.
It didn't take long for anosmia to become the hallmark symptom of COVID-19. The numbers were just staggering. In one major study, a whopping 65% of people with COVID said they lost their sense of smell. Compare that to only about 22% of people who tested negative. The connection wasn't just a hunch, it was a massive, flashing red light in the data.
But right away, everyone, doctors, patients, you name it, knew something was off. This was not the kind of smell loss you get from a regular cold. You know how with a cold, your nose gets all stuffy and you gradually can't smell? This was totally different. For a lot of people with COVID, it was like a switch was flipped. 1 minute you can smell, the next, nothing. And the weirdest part? It often happened with no stuffy nose at all. This was a huge clue that some other, much stranger mechanism was going on here.
So this set off a massive scientific investigation. The big question was, how in the world was this virus so good at shutting down our sense of smell, and in such a bizarre way?
The first and most obvious theory was also the scariest one. The fear was that the virus was going straight for the neurons themselves, that it was directly infecting and killing our smell neurons. And that is a terrifying thought, because those neurons are basically a direct highway to the brain.
But then, after a ton of research, we're talking tissue samples, genetic deep dives, the whole shebang, the scientific community came back with a pretty surprising answer. Nope, that's not what was happening. The virus wasn't, for the most part, attacking our main smell neurons directly.
Okay, so if it wasn't the neurons, then what was the target? Well, the clue was in the doorway the virus uses to get into our cells, a protein called the ACE2 receptor. And this, right here, this is the aha moment. When scientists looked, they found our main smell neurons barely had any of these ACE2 doorways. But remember that pit crew we talked about, the supporting cystenticular cells? Bingo. They were absolutely covered in them.
And just like that, the puzzle was solved. The virus had this incredibly clever indirect strategy. It wasn't going after the star driver, it was taking out the entire pit crew. The virus would infect and just wreck those supporting cells. And without that vital support system, the delicate smell neurons are basically left high and dry, they can't work right, they get damaged, some of them even die off. Then, your body's own immune system rushes in, causing a bunch of inflammation, and the whole system just collapses. That's what caused that sudden, dramatic shutdown of smell.
Now, if there's any silver lining to this whole thing, it's this. The massive global effort to understand COVID has turbocharged our understanding of smell. It's like a decade of research got packed into a couple of years. As one researcher, Dr. Ashish Manglik, put it, it's given us our first hold in understanding how this all works at a molecular level. It's really the beginning of a brand new chapter in the science of our senses.
Which leaves us with a pretty wild final thought, right? We started this by talking about smell being like a musical chord. So as scientists get better and better at mapping exactly which keys get pressed to make every smell we know, well, what comes next? We're heading toward a future where we might not just be able to replicate smells, but actually compose new ones. Think about that. What would a smell designed to make you feel perfectly calm smell like? Or a scent that could spark creativity? Or one that evokes an emotion that nobody has ever even felt before? That's the mind-bending frontier that this research is taking us to,